Okay, I welcome you to the second part of the modernization theory lecture. So here we need to look at modernization and development, the very relationship between these two. So development, like modernization, has become the orienting principle of modern times. So interchangeably used, it's proposed that development also be looked at as like modernization as a principle that would orient the modern times. Countries that are seen as modern are also as seen as developed, something that I spoke about in my last lecture, which means that they are generally more respected by institutions such as the United Nations and even as possible trade partners for other countries. The reason why China or America has so much of establishment in different parts of the world, especially in the developing countries, is something that is symbolic of this sort of a nature of modern countries. The extent to which a country has modernized or developed dictates its power and importance at the international level. So they could negotiate better. They can have a larger say in the UN state affairs. So a developed nation or a modern nation can have a larger impact on the society in general, or on even on other societies or the communities. People would look forward to such sort of nations. Modernization of the health sector of developing nations recognizes that transitioning from traditional to modern are not merely by advancement in technology and the introduction of Western practices. Implementing modern healthcare requires the reorganization of political agenda and in turn an increase in funding by feeders and resources towards public health. So, like I told, that public healthcare system of any country is works as a very important tool or as a very important symbol of development, that by merely adapting as per the modernization theory, as per merely adapting the advancement in technology or looking at Western modular practices, we might not work that way. We need to understand especially the underdeveloped countries or the countries which are in a state of development must reorganize their policies, and see that the international funding agencies, international funding from whichever source it is coming, are directed towards public health. So two things, like I had been focusing and I had been constantly telling all of you that we need to pay attention to whenever we discuss about various discourses of development, that one is public healthcare and another is the public education system. So if we strengthen these two, if we redirect our money, if we redirect our policies, if we redirect our political agendas of individual communities or communities coming together to form a society or a country for that matter, modern healthcare facilities would be reflective of modernization principles, modernization practices, and it would help us to move from being called as a traditional or as a developing nation to a more developed one, because we could deal and cope up with every kind of challenges that would come in front of us as far as the healthcare sector is concerned. However, rather than replicating the stages of developed nations whose roots of modernization are found with the context of industrialization or colonialism, underdeveloped nations should apply proximal interventions to target rural communities and focus on prevention strategies rather than curative solutions. So, what these theorists have been suggesting for the longest period of time is this: that don't mindlessly replicate, don't just see this as a growing model and adopt it, because it would not be sustainable in nature. Repeatedly, I've been telling you that the focus should be on local communities. The focus should be on communities which are ethnic in nature, communities which are homegrown. So, and looking at their challenges, looking at their issues, looking at their context, we need to kind of make strategic interventions by targeting those communities, by targeting communities who live in the fringes, communities whom we define as rural, especially the urban dwellers, and look at what could be done, to avoid, avoid situations that can be problematic eventually, and then look for those sort of prevention strategies rather than looking for curative solutions much later. Uh, One good thing is we have models to identify, we have models to look at. Now, looking at that models, looking at the history of evolution of these countries, we can say that okay, these are the things that we would do, or these are the things we would not do in order to make ourselves a better country to live in, or a better society to live in. So just because we want the cool modern country, modern community tag, doesn't necessarily mean that we must banally adapt everything that is there, because that way we would not be able to sustain any of these things. And our primacy must be given to rural communities, because there are just too many people in living in those communities. So we can't just keep focusing and keep bettering our urban dwellers, or the standard of living of our urban dwellers, or the urban places, and say that okay, but then look at XYG places, these places are symbolically great. Going by that logic, we have 5 billionaire in the country, doesn't improve the economy of the country at all. Or we have 20 corporates which cuts across as leading global industries, but doesn't make much of a difference unless our per capita income, or our national income you know grows better. So we need to focus on those areas. We need to focus on the underdeveloped nations, and the developing nations need to focus on those sort of strategic interventions. Modernization theorists also saw tradition as obstacles to economic growth. Most of the times, economic conditions are heavily determined by the cultural social values present in the given society, because they work as a predetermining agent, right? The things that we have adopted over a period of time, our social values we have grown up with, our cultural symbols that we so much hold dear to, they're the ones most of the times define whether we will take up something or not, something even if that is economically beneficial to us. Most of the times we try to look at it as a challenge which we would not want to take up. Furthermore, while modernization might deliver violent radical changes for traditional societies, it was thought worth the price. Many a times it happens. Okay, traditional societies take years and years to grow or to evolve, and the process of modernization cuts it very violently. It requires, or it calls for radical changes. It calls for the society to change and the people to evolve at a much faster pace as against the traditional ones. So the mindset needs to be changed, but modernization theories always propose that this sort of a change, which comes at a cost of loss of innocence, or the cost of losing out on traditions and values, could be worth the price. Critics insist that traditional societies were often destroyed without ever gaining the promised advantages, if many among other things the economic gap between the advanced societies and such societies actually increased. Okay, so what those modernization critics kind of say here, or offer here, is that many a times it happens there's several countries, for example, there's several countries which would come up as case studies, which just perished, or which never got that sort of a scope that it was promised, that if you do this, then the economic gap would reduce and XYZ things will happen. So the net effect of modernization for some societies were therefore the replacement of traditional poverty by a more modern form of misery, according to these critics. So those who are modernization critics, people who critique the ideas of modernization, or but ideas that were proposed by modernization theories, say that it's like neo-colonialism, that things, the colonial rulers left, and you are now ruled by a bunch of people who behave, who though are homegrown, who though claim that they are your own, but they still continue to exploit your situations. They still continue to loot you. They still continue to take your resources away. So what has happened is, if you look at the modernization effect on a lot of societies, it has just moved from the traditional form of poverty to a modern form of misery. The situation still remains the same, more or less. From the 1970s, modernization theory has been criticized by famous scholars including Andre Gunther Frank, Immanuel Wallerstein. According to them, modernization of a society required the destruction of indigenous culture and its replacement of a more westernized one. Uh, Modernization critics would, Frank and Wallerstein heavily proposed this, saying that they were always advocates, fierce advocates of saving traditional cultures or indigenous culture. They said that with the process of modernization in a society, more capitalistic approach and more capitalistic mindset came into picture, and that in turn, what it did is it replaced the indigenous cultures, it replaced the indigenous knowledge system, it replaced a structure which was extremely local in nature by a more westernized one, and more people would take up to that because it's a newer thing, and it's more lot more attractive. It offers you at the surface, offers you better standard of living, maybe, so on and so forth. So in the process, what would happen is um, there'd be a significant loss of the indigenous cultures. By one definition, modern simply refers to the present. Okay, if you do a simple Google search of how do you define the word modern, would be something relating to um, the contemporary ones, relating to something that is current or something present, and in a society that's still in existence is therefore modern. So if a society is it's there, at this point in time, it's considered to be approaching a certain state of modernization. Proponents of modernization typically view only Western society as being truly modern and argue that others are primitive or unevolved by comparison. So there is a comparative yardstick thrown at each developing society or underdeveloped society and said that you please gulp it down, you please try to replicate your society in this way or that way, try to bend your policies, try to reform your people, try to bring in certain kind of a change which would help you understand and gain the benefits of modernization, and you could also deem yourselves as a modernized society or as a modernized community or as a modernized country. So that view which sees unmodernized societies as inferior even if they have the same standard of living as the Western societies. A beggar is a beggar whether he or she is in Western Europe or in North America or in India. But the beggar of India would be always looked more down upon as against a beggar in America or in Europe. And the primary reason being that person is a white skinned person, that person belongs to a better evolved society, and could possibly be having some sort of social security scheme, or could be having some sort of a benefit as against the Indian one. So it's like grass is greener on the other side. So even if that is there, even if that distinction is there, we always look at it that from that point of view, that socially they are better. The Western societies are something that we always look forward to. It's pretty much like a certain kind of a cultural hegemony that exists, like English. Like everybody must be able to speak English, must be able to speak better English, and must be able to communicate in English, and then only you can be considered as a superior person. So this sort of a complex, an inferiority complex that is almost engineered into our society is a problematic one. Opponents argue that modernity is independent of culture and can be adapted by any societies. So those people who are the proponents of, as against the proponents, those people who would oppose this sort of theory, they said modernity has got nothing to do with it. It's independent of the culture, and any society can adapt it. Any society who wants to adapt it can adapt it, and there should not be a single yardstick, a singular measure to look at every society and say that okay, this is what is the yardstick, or this is the measure of a modern society, and only if you achieve X, Y, G things, then a society can be deemed modern. Otherwise, it can't be called a modern society. Then the theory has also been criticized empirically, as modernization theorists ignore external sources of change in the society. So any sort of a change that happens externally, those sort of changes were ignored by modernization theorists, and constantly they focused on things that are internal in nature. The binary between the traditional and modern is unhelpful, as the two are linked and often interdependent, and modernization doesn't come as a whole. So modernization is not the process of modernization, as critics uh, possibly argue, is something that doesn't come in isolation. It's completely dependent on traditional societies. We need something to compare to, right? We can't say that we are happy unless we have experienced sadness. The same way, unless we had been traditional, or unless we had been pre-modern, we can't attain that state of modernization and call ourselves a modern community or a whole bunch of. So that binary is that this society is better, or that than that society, that a modern society is better than a traditional one, is doesn't help much, because they are intricately linked. Modernization theory has also been accused of being Eurocentric, which means the focus has always been over Europe. As modernization began in Europe with the Industrial Revolution, the French Revolution, and the revolutions of 1848, and has long been regarded as reaching its most advanced state in Europe. So, if you travel to Europe, you can see a lot of changes. You can see what sort of a difference exists between what we understand the Orient and the Occident. What sort of a change um, exist as far as a society is concerned, how different is our culture, our value system than theirs, and why they're considered to be superior. Why most of the times Europe and America is pushed as as these model nations, or having model countries. So anthropologists typically make their criticism one step further and say that the view is ethnocentric and is specific to Western culture. So while the critics of modernization theory said that the theory was proposed as something that holds Eurocentric values, anthropologists went one step further and said that no, it is not just Eurocentric, it is ethnocentric, which means it is very specific to Western culture, and Western culture is deemed as a modern culture, as against other Asian cultures or other cultures which are considered to be relatively less modern and more traditional in nature. Modernization is intricately linked to mass media. We need to study what is the relationship and examine what is the relationship between modernization and mass media. The trend towards mass communication, where the media were utilized in the field of development. So, based on the idea that it is enough to disseminate the knowledge and technologies of the North to ensure that they were adapted. Okay, I was talking about it in the last lecture, earlier lecture, that why Apple or Windows come from America, because technologically they're advanced and they're in a superior state. They have better access to technological research, and hence they progress accordingly. So, based on that idea, it knowledge dissemination and technological dissemination should happen, and underdeveloping countries, with the help of mass media, must adopt to those sort of technological changes. So once adopted, the South would achieve development. Now, the you need to understand what the North-South divide here is. North would refer to all the modern countries, the first world nations, and South would always be considered to be the global South, which is us, and all the developed, all the underdeveloping and the developing countries. And once we adapt to those sort of ideas, then we could achieve development. These initial experiences centered mainly around mass media, based on a communication model that used persuasion and information transmission, and a development model founded on increasing economic activity and changes values and attitudes. The very fact that at this point in time, because of technology, we can have access to different cultures, different knowledge systems, different societies, just through internet or just through media. So there is a huge information network. The the entire world has become a global village, and all thanks to the network technologies, all thanks to different models of communication, that we have reached this stage of persuasion. And there is a strange set of a belief system that has come up with this, that we are likely to believe in those sort of experiences that surround mass media, and that would help us understand why certain kind of development model has been the founding material for economic activities at different parts of the world. Why America is in that state of economic advancement, or why Canada or different parts of Europe is in that state of economic advancement, it would be a no-brainer, because at this point in time all we need is to do a basic research on the internet and we will be able to understand why they have reached that state. We can read the history of America, we can read the history of Europe, and it will be easy for us to see or examine that what kind of a value system or what kind of an attitude towards the process of modernization these countries or these geographies have adopted in order to reach that state of modernization where they have reached at this point in time. Thus, communication for development is found in the modernization theories. Okay, so how different communication tools are used for development, you could try and trace that in different kind of modernization theories, and there is a intricate link between the thing. Inheritance of historical institutional biases from US propaganda research during world wars, these are examples. Mass communication media is equal to powerful instruments in the successful manipulation of people's opinion and attitude. If you remember any kind of opinion formation theories that we studied in the first semester, you'd understand that why mass media has the capacity to manipulate. It manufactures consent, if you remember. Okay, we discussed about Chomsky's manufacturing consent and how media could be used for propaganda during world wars. Media could almost mass sterilize the people, can create hysteria, can almost set ideological principles for people by manipulating people's opinion and attitude. And all the political campaigns, you can see how aggressively politicians successful policies or things that they have done is blown out of proportion and is kind of mass fade. So it's relatively easier to understand if you look at reception theories, if you look at mass effect theories, mass media effect theories, you'd be able to understand that. Powerful media effects research into social, political and economic context, especially during Cold War, funded by CIA and the US military and based on professional links with academics. Okay, something that you can look at it as a connection between media and development, as a connection between media and modernization process, that how they played a very significant role in such sort of a situation. Okay, there's some issue. Let's look at it. Give me a second. Right. So shortcomings of this sort of theory, we also need to look at it, and what are those shortcomings and why those people who critique those kind of theories, that kind of a theory, what do they have to offer as shortcomings. People began questioning the modernization model because they saw that communication did not necessarily lead to development, observing that in fact countries of the South appear to be sliding further and further into poverty, low salaries and poor living conditions. Like I said, there are so many countries which can work as case studies where different developmental policies and of different modernization principles, modernization models were applied, but it didn't work. And instead of leading any kind of having any kind of development, they went further down. This criticism, which was developed above all in Latin America, which emphasized the link between the situation and the situation of economic dependence on the industrialized North, the development of the countries in the North were conditional on the underdevelopment of the countries of Third World, and the center developed at the expense of the periphery. So this is something that happened, that it almost like colonialism. One country thrives on the lack of resources, or on the underutilization of resources, on the lack of opportunity of other country. So North America succeeded over Latin America because Latin America had resources and North America had the power to bank upon those, and slowly those things were drawn. So and that is the correlation between any underdeveloped country or a developing country as against a developed one, that the third world always stays in a state of exploitation, and the center, which is the North, would always develop at the expense of the periphery, which is the south, which is the underdeveloped or the developing countries. Then McBride Commission proposed this, or had this sort of a statement to make about the concept of modernization. McBride Commission was asked to present a report on modernization principles, and this is what they had to offer, and I'll close this session with that. The former models use communication especially for disseminating information and for getting people to understand the benefits promised by development and the sacrifices it demands. Understand these things in quote, getting people to understand the benefits promised by development and the sacrifices it demands. So there is a correlation between benefits and sacrifices. Both are in double inverted comma, and understand in order to reap the benefits, we should be able to sacrifice ourselves. So this is a thing that is always proposed. The imitation of a development model based on the hypothesis that wealth once acquired would automatically filter down to all levels of society included the propagation of communication practices from top to bottom. The effects were a long way from the effects that were expected. This is something that McBride Commission offered in the McBride Commission report of 1980, and said that it doesn't trickle down in that way. There is a certain amount of expectation which is idealistic in nature, something that helps in understanding the propagation of the communication practices, but doesn't work that way. It still remains a hypothesis. It still remains that every development model cannot be pasted on another underdeveloping country without looking at their context, without looking at their economic situations, without looking at their cultural values, without looking at their economic barriers or what kind of economic hindrances that exist. Okay, so unless those things are potentially taken into consideration, we cannot formulate a standard model and pass it on. So that kind of sums up the modernization theory of development, and then in the next session we will move on to another theory. Till that point in time, you have a good time, and then hope this session is useful for all of you. Okay, I'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much.